My maid pretended to be me and fell in love with Lee Mabai, who was staying at the Prime Minister's residence, and got pregnant. Lee Mabai, who was the top scorer in the imperial examination, later came to the Prime Minister's residence to propose marriage, and my father agreed. The maidservant jumped into the well in despair, killing 2 people. On the wedding night, Lee Mabai discovered that I was not the one he loved, and he quietly investigated the matter, thinking that I was jealous of the maid and forced her to death. In the following 10 years, he used the power of the Prime Minister's mansion to rise rapidly. On the surface, he was gentle and considerate to me, but when the Prime Minister's mansion was involved in a conspiracy case, he added insult to injury, causing my father's death and the exile of my entire family. I was also tortured by him and was thrown into a cold pond and drowned in the cold winter. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the day when he came to the Prime Minister's residence to propose marriage. 01. The biting cold and the feeling of suffocation seemed to still remain in my body. My face turned pale, my teeth trembled slightly, and I stared at the fresh face in the mirror without saying a word, thinking about how to kill Lee Mabai. I knew he would come to propose marriage today, make a big fuss, and let everyone know. Everyone said that the new #1 scholar fell in love with the daughter of the Prime Minister at first sight, and that it was a match made in heaven. In fact, the one he fell in love with at first sight was my maid Jing K. Lee Mabai and my Nan family are closely related, so while he was in Beijing for the imperial examination, he stayed at the Prime Minister's residence. My father values talent and treats him with courtesy. My eldest brother also mentioned him to me, saying that he has the talent to be the top scholar. The magpie became interested and pretended to be me, approaching him again and again. The 2 quickly fell in love and even had a child. I don't have any feelings for Lee Mabai, but I know this is a good marriage. The young top scholar is talented in his own right, and with my father's protection, he is sure to have a bright future. Besides, my family is poor, and I only have an old mother at home. I have to rely on the Prime Minister's mansion for everything, and no one dares to make me angry. So when my parents asked me, I agreed to the marriage. However, this time, when Grandma Chen, who was beside my mother, came to me, she said, Mr. Lee wants to marry the girl named Jingxia, who is beside the young lady. Madam, let the young lady make her own decision. I immediately knew that Lee Mabai had also returned. 02. Magpie took 3 days of sick leave, actually because the fetus was unstable. She was afraid of overwork and stayed in bed all day, missing the chance to explain to Lee Mabai. I took Grandma Chin to the ear room to find her. At that time, she didn't look pregnant, but she looked unwell. I said, the new #1 scholar wants to marry you. She looked surprised, yet shy and at a loss, not daring to look me in the eye. She was afraid that I would ask her about her and Lee Mabai. But I didn't ask anything. I asked another maid, Ming Chan, to dress her up and take her to the front hall to meet the guests. When Lee Mabai saw her, he was stunned for a moment, and then his eyes turned red. He hasn't seen her for 10 years. When he looked at me again, his eyes turned into hatred. I hate him no less than he does. I thought about hiding, but as soon as I saw him, all the pressure from my past life came back to me. My father was beheaded, my mother died of illness during exile, my brother lost a leg, my sister-in-law committed suicide to protect her innocence, and one of my 2 nephews died, and the other was injured. The family was destroyed, and all the people died, all thanks to Lee Mabai. His heart was filled with hatred, surging and could not be concealed at all. Lee Mabai was stunned, and I knew he saw through it. But I don't care. I said, Jingxia is a servant of my Nan family. I don't know when the #1 scholar fell in love with her, but a gentleman should help others to achieve their goals. Since the #1 scholar wants to marry her, there is no reason for me, as her master, to disagree. I returned the indenture of the magpie to her. You are free. The magpie was so moved that tears welled up in his eyes. Lee Mabai had a complicated expression. He clasped his fists and bowed to me, preparing to leave. I said again, wait a minute. 03. Lee Mabai looked back at me warily. A servant came in from the door, leading the doctor. I pointed at the magpie and said, Please ask Dr. Huang to take this girl's pulse." The frightened magpie hid behind Li Maobai. Li Maobai glanced at me with disappointment and disgust. No need. My mother figured out what was going on and had two strong maids hold down the baby. Fearing that the baby might hurt the fetus, the baby did not dare to move and had to let Dr. Huang feel her pulse. Her pretty face turned extremely pale. "The fetus seems a little unstable, but it's not a big deal. I'll prescribe some medicine to stabilize the pregnancy," said Dr. Huang. My mother was furious. What a shameless person. The frightened magpie was ashamed and afraid. His face flushed red, and he subconsciously knelt down and admitted his mistake. Li Maobai held her back and said, "You are no longer a servant of the Prime Minister's mansion. You don't need to kneel before them." He then said, "Madam Nan, Jingxia is my fiancé. Please be careful with your words." He thought he was still the crown prince's confidant and the new emperor's closest minister, and everyone had to look at his face. My mother was so angry that she threw the cup. My father gave him a cold look and said, "How dare the #1 scholar? You actually lecture my wife." Li Maobai's face froze. He came to his senses. "Apart from the unstable fetus, are there any other problems?" I asked. Dr. Huang shook his head. "No." I looked at Li Maobai and said, "Listen carefully. Your fiancé must leave my residence without any harm or injury. If she dies or becomes disabled in the future, please do not blame my residence for it. Also, my maidservant in the Prime Minister's mansion had an affair with a man without a matchmaker. According to the law, she can be beaten to death. In other words, I could kill the magpie openly without having to force her to death in secret." Li Maobai understood and looked hesitant. 04. My dad told Li Maobai to get out. When he rolled over, he came face to face with Zhao Sais, who was rushing over. Zhao Sais shouted anxiously, "Uncle Nan, don't rush to marry Sister Jinping to Li Maobai. Please consider me." His face darkened, and he stopped rolling. Zhao Sais is the young master of the Qing'an mansion and the nephew of the empress. We have known each other since childhood. He has 2 older brothers and 1 older sister, and is spoiled by the whole family. Although he was frivolous and arrogant, he was not unlearned. In this imperial examination, he made a bet with others and managed to get 37th place in the 2nd class. The son of a noble family does not rely on fame and fortune. He just wants to prove that he is not useless, and he will remain the same as before. In my previous life, when he came to propose marriage, I had already promised Li Maobai. But I have compared them privately, and this marriage in Qing'an Mansion is not bad either. The elders are kind, the brothers and sisters are harmonious, and Zhao Si is the kind of man who will take you out for food, drinks, and fun when there is nothing to do, and protect you from wind and rain when there is trouble. Facts have proven this to be true. After my family got into trouble, he changed his idle state, found an official position for his family, and actively worked for my family. Later, it was he who found the key evidence, overturned the case for my father, and cleared the name of my Nan family. This is such a great kindness that I cannot repay even with my life. My eyes are red. Zhao Si was stunned. "No, are you scared or happy?" I chuckled. "Silly. Mr. Li is seeking to marry a magpie. Why are you in such a hurry?" Zhao Sais was stunned again, and looked at Li Maobai in disbelief. After a long while, he uttered, "Brother Li really has a unique vision." Li Maobai's face became even uglier. 05. My marriage to Zhao Sais has been settled. Li Maobai took the opportunity to talk to me while I was out. "In your previous life, you have paid the price for killing the magpie, and we are even now. In this life, as long as you do not harm the magpie and behave yourself, I will not deal with your Nan family again. Although Zhao Sais is not a good match, he is more than suitable for you. Forget me, live a good life with him. Put away those evil thoughts and stop thinking about embarrassing Jing Ke. You exposed her pregnancy and embarrassed her, but I won't bother with you for the sake of your returning her bond. But if you still don't change your ways, don't blame me for being rude." He was high and mighty, with a fierce look on his face and eyes as cold as arrows, just like he was in his previous life, when we had a falling out. But at that time, he was wearing shoe brocade, jade boots on his feet, a priceless jade pendant on his waist, and rare ivory hairpins on his hair. Instead, he was wearing a washed-out sky blue gown without any valuable items on his body. Half of a person's dignity and momentum are built on his appearance. He was like an incompetent berserker, not realizing at all that he had nothing now and had no capital to negotiate with me. I looked at him quietly. "It's not fair." He sighed and called me by my nickname. "Jinping, why are you doing this? I have never liked women like you, who are arrogant and unlearned. Jingxia told me that your talent and fame were all earned by her and Mingchan. I think you knew about me and the magpie in your previous life, but you deliberately made things worse in order to marry me and forced her to death. Forget it, let's not talk about it. You have been my wife for 10 years. You should be content." He is indeed blind. In my previous life, the magpie not only impersonated me, but also secretly copied down the poems I wrote. She applied to herself the piano I played, the paintings I made, and even the unfinished chess games my elder brother and I played. Li Mabai was deceived by her and didn't know her true identity, so it was understandable that he believed she was a talented woman. But now that the truth is out, I am still being led by her words. Isn't that stupid? Li Mabai. I stared into his eyes, my face cold. My father, my mother, my sister-in-law, and my nephew for lives. You can't just say goodbye to them. And the baby in my belly. During the 10-year period, she became pregnant 4 times, had 4 miscarriages, and ultimately was unable to conceive for the rest of her life. He actually said he was clear of all these matters? I smiled sarcastically. Li Mabai, you and I will fight to the death. 06. My father must dislike Li Mabai, but I still added fuel to the fire. This boy is scheming and has bad character. He asked to marry my maid, but he could have done it in a low-key manner, but he chose to make a big fuss so that everyone knew about it. Everyone thought he was going to marry the daughter of the prime minister, but in the end, he ended up marrying the daughter's maid. If I hadn't thought about it, I would have become a laughingstock in the whole Duanjing. He is the current top scholar, and he shouldn't act so rudely, but he did it anyway. I suspect he has joined your political enemies, so you have to be careful.
My delusional.
I repeated almost the same words to the prince in a complaining and doubtful tone, and the prince immediately had a bad impression of Li Mabai. The prince is Zhao Sai's cousin, and we are quite familiar with each other. Knowing that Zhao Sai and I were engaged, he was very happy. You should thank Li Mabai. If it weren't for him, Sai wouldn't have rushed to propose marriage. Then he said, Sai, what do you want? I'll give you a gift as a congratulatory gift. Zhao Si was very rude. You are in a hot spring resort outside Beijing. The prince was shocked by his shamelessness. Do you know how much this manor is worth? He said sheepishly. Jinping is afraid of the cold. Yes, I am afraid of the cold. Li Mabai also knew that I was afraid of the cold, so he chose the way I was most afraid of to send me to death.
07.
Li Mabai and Jing Kei's wedding was scheduled for the end of June. It was urgent, but there was no other way. If it was too late, the baby would be unable to be hidden. As lively as his wedding with me was in the previous life, his wedding with Magpie was as deserted in this life. The new #1 scholar should have been very popular, but everyone knew that he had offended the prime minister, and no one was willing to go against the prime minister for a kid with no future. Furthermore, the top scholar was supposed to be appointed to the Imperial Academy, but for some reason, both the 2nd and 3rd place winners were appointed, but Li Mabai was the only one who did not receive any decree from above. Their wedding was held in a courtyard rented by the Li family. It wasn't a big place, but Li Mabai spent a lot of money to hire an outside wedding and funeral team to cook the food, charging 5 taels of silver per meal. They set up 10 tables and also borrowed space from a neighbor. As a result, no official came, but 2 tables were occupied by neighbors. I heard that Li Mabai's face was black from beginning to end. He thought it was my father who was behind it and that he had taken advantage of me when I went to the jewelry shop to buy jewelry. After being married for 10 years, he really understood me. Do you think I was able to achieve a high position in my previous life because of your father? he said angrily. The prince appreciated me because we share the same political views and interests, and because I have real talents and can help him govern the country. He laughed at me. You ignorant woman with narrow vision. Do you think you can stop me like this? In his previous life, he was recommended by my father and won the recognition of the crown prince with a policy paper. My father taught him step by step, and he was willing to endure hardships, so he soon showed his talent. He was right in saying one thing: he does have real talent and knowledge. But so what? I called the shopkeeper. Why are there beggars coming in? He was kicked out, his face red with anger. 08. Li Mabai never met the prince. Even though he had great talent and his policy paper was brilliant, with his status, it was impossible for him to meet His Royal Highness the Crown Prince without someone to recommend him. But I still underestimated him. He hooked up with the chief eunuch Deng Rushing and not only acknowledged him as his godfather, but also promised that the first son born by Jingqia would take his surname and be sent to his lap to be raised. Li Mabai's 60-year-old mother fell ill due to anger, but Jing Ke supported him. His policy paper was finally delivered to the crown prince as he wished, but the crown prince did not read it and threw it away. The prince hated him. He recognized the eunuch as his father and sold out his own child. He has no integrity of a scholar at all. Deng Rushing also found a 7th-rank official position for Li Mabai. Although the position was low, many families were willing to associate with him because of his position as the chief eunuch. General Jinwu invited their family to the old lady of the Sui family's 70th birthday party. I saw the magpie at the banquet. Her belly was already showing, and she was wearing a loose green skirt. The material was not very good, and the golden phoenix hairpin in her hair was the one I had given her when I first awarded her. When she saw me looking at her, her face turned slightly red. Some people commented, I really don't know what the new #1 scholar was thinking, to marry a maid? That's right. She looks average, has a bad temperament, and is timid and cowardly. Look at her clothes. Even my maids don't wear them. Some people even shouted at her directly. Hey, aren't you going to pay your respects to your master? These people looked down on the magpie and were jealous of her. Li Mabai is talented and handsome, and many people are attracted to him, both in the past and present lives. No one could have imagined that he would end up marrying a lowly maid. The magpie lowered her head and rubbed the hem of her skirt with her fingers. Then she seemed unable to bear it any longer, raised her head and glanced at me quickly, then stood up and walked towards me. Miss, I know you hate me, she said with red eyes, but you can't instigate these people to insult me like this. After all, I am the wife of the top scholar. I thought it was funny. Why should I be jealous of you? My husband was ranked first in the imperial examination, but your husband was ranked 37th in the second class. You are of noble status, and I am just a maid. My husband is better than yours, so you naturally feel unbalanced. She has her own logic. I laughed. You think too much. Although the #1 scholar is amazing, he is not a rare thing. Since the founding of the country, our country has produced a total of 56 #1 scholars. In 3 years, there will be one more. You don't have to think that everyone is rare. Besides, I looked her up and down, curling my lips. I can't live a hard life. 09. The whole room burst into laughter. The magpie couldn't hold back her tears and she cried and wanted to run away. Sui Nwan grabbed her in time and glared at me. Stop talking and don't cause trouble in my house. Impregnan. She is the niece of General Jinwu, and she has always been at odds with me. She has always been competing with me for the title of the most talented woman in Duanjing. She is not necessarily standing up for Jingqi Ke, but she just seizes every opportunity to scold me. My eyes welled up and my tone softened. Okay, for your sake, I won't argue with her. Sui Nwan was like seeing a ghost. Nan Jinping, did you take the wrong medicine? In the previous life, the Sui family, like our Nan family, was also involved in a treason case, but the difference was that the Sui family was not innocent. Sui Nwan's uncle, General Jinwu, really colluded with Prince and opened the door for Prince N to attack Duanjing. Later, Prince N's army was defeated. General Jinwu was shot to death by random arrows, and all members of the Sui family were executed. But because Swainwan looked a bit like a magpie, Li Mabai rescued her and took her into the back house. She was at odds with me on the surface, but secretly helped me many times. The time when I was dying, Li Mabai didn't let anyone call a doctor. She deliberately made herself sick and took the opportunity to ask the doctor for medicine. When Li Mabai threw me into the cold pond, she risked her life to jump down to save me. After being stopped by Li Mabai, she shouted to me, "Nan Jinping, hold on. Zhao Sais has already overturned the verdict for your family. Your elder brother will be returning to Beijing soon.
You must not die.
If you die, who will I fight with in the future?" But I still died. I couldn't hold on. I stood up and took a step back, subconsciously. I ignored her and hugged Swainwan. "I declare that from now on you will be the most talented woman in Duanjing. I, Nan Jinping, will admit defeat." Swainwan shuddered. "Nan Jinping, don't be like this, I'm scared."
10.
The magpie left before the party was over. I chased her, but she kept a distance from me cautiously. "What do you want to do?" She held her belly. I chuckled. "Have you noticed that you and Swainwan are somewhat similar? However, Swainwan is prettier than you, has more temperament and talent than you, and has a better family background than you. But I heard that the elders of the Sui family don't think highly of Li Mabai." The color drained from her face. "You are trying to sow discord. You can go ask Li Mabai," I said. She fled in panic, tears welling up in her eyes. I knew she wouldn't ask. She was just a maid who was sold to a trafficker by her parents. She betrayed her master and had no one to rely on except Li Mabai. Regardless of whether what I said was true or not, she didn't dare to question Li Mabai. She would only observe secretly, and then she would find that Li Mabai did look at Sui Nuan differently. Women tend to be more suspicious when they are pregnant, and they will magnify any clues. She will never be at peace. Human energy is limited. If Li Mabai wants to comfort and take care of her, he won't be so thoughtful in other aspects. I turned around and Swainwan was standing behind me, frowning. "What did you tell her?" She looked like she had seen a ghost. "Nothing." "Why are you acting weird today?" I didn't explain to her but whispered, "Your uncle seems to be seeing someone. Ask your father to keep an eye on him." She looked at me in horror. I grabbed her hand and said sternly, "This concerns the lives of your entire family. Remember to keep it a secret." That's all I can say. The rest depends on their luck. Swainwan was very scared and went to look for her father almost immediately. 11. 2 months later, the two brothers of the Sui family turned against each other. It is said that it was because the Sui general plotted Swainwan's marriage. Although it did not succeed, the two families had a fierce quarrel. Not only did they split up the family, but they also threatened not to have any contact with each other until they died. I am very relieved. Swainwan's father is a man who knows what's going on. He and General Sui live under the same roof. If he pays close attention, he will definitely be able to find clues. Cut off the Gordian not quickly. Even if you are implicated in the future, you'll not end up like in your previous life. Swainwan asked me to meet her at Zuixianju and gave me a set of expensive headwear. My dad said it was a thank you gift. I accepted it without hesitation. Her attitude towards me has changed, and she is willing to talk to me about her innermost feelings. I don't know what's wrong with that Li Mabai. Every time he sees me, he looks at me strangely. One time he even called me Nuan Nuan, but my eldest brother scolded him and he ran away. Swainwan's father was a lecturer in the Hamlin Academy. The prince liked to listen to him talk about classics and history. Li Mabai probably wanted to follow his path. After all, his godfather Deng Rushing had achieved little success, and he had been slow to gain the prince's recognition. Having already reached a high position, he did not have the patience to wait for several years anyway. Suddenly, there was a noise coming from the opposite door. The voice sounded familiar. Swainwan and I opened the door and saw that it was Li Mabai and Zhao Sais. It turned out that Li Mabai had found out the prince's whereabouts from somewhere and followed him to Zuixianju. The guards at the door did not inform him, and the two had a conflict. The prince heard the commotion inside and asked Zhao Sais to come out and deal with it. Zhao Sai's didn't like Li Mabai in the first place, and was about to attack him after just a few words, but when he suddenly saw me coming out, he immediately stopped. Sister Jinping, you should also come here to eat, he said, his expression changing from a stern look just now to a gentle smile like a spring breeze. Their roasted pigeon is especially delicious. You must try it.
He was still in the mood to talk to me about food.
Swain Wan responded casually. Okay, wait a minute. I'm treating your sister Jinping to dinner today. Just tell me what delicious food you have. Zhao Sai's actually named a few dishes. Li Mabai drank, was furious, and said boldly, I said I want to see His Highness. Zhao Si sneered. You think Your Highness can see all kinds of people? Hurry up and leave. Don't disturb me from talking to Sister Jinping. Li Mabai's anger burned on me. Nan Jinping, did you tell His Highness something? His Highness would not refuse to see me after reading my policy paper. You must be holding a grudge against me and slandering me in front of His Highness. Swain Wan looked at him incredulously. What are you talking about? What does this have to do with Jinping? Li Mabai's expression was gentle towards her. Wan, Miss Sui, stay away from Nan Jinping. She is vicious, talentless, and jealous. You are better than her in every way. One day she will hurt you. Swain Wan's face turned red with anger. Are you sick?
12.
I'm not angry at all. Li Mabai's loss of composure just shows that he has lost his mind. But that's not enough. I asked, what policy paper? Is it the one that His Highness had thrown away? Zhao sighs. Isn't it? I don't know, but if Sister Jinping said it was lost, then it must have been lost. Even if it wasn't lost, I let His Highness lose it. He and I looked at each other and smiled affectionately. Li Mabai was so angry that he lost his mind. Nan Jinping, don't refuse my toast, and then drink the wine for punishment. Did I warn you not to play tricks? You don't take me seriously at all. He completely confused his past and present lives and thought he was still a high and mighty official, while I, with my family broken up and my loved ones dead, was left to be bullied by him. He tried to hit me. In fact, he couldn't hit me. As soon as he made a move, Zhao Sai's kicked him quickly, but I still screamed and fell down. Because he was next to the stairs, he rolled down directly. He didn't suffer any serious injuries, but his forehead was cut and blood was all over his face, which was particularly shocking to see. Zhao Sai's was very smart and immediately took the initiative. Li Mabai, you are so brave that you dare to murder the daughter of the current prime minister in public. The sound was so loud that half of the people in the restaurant heard it. Before Li Mabai could explain himself, he was picked up like a chicken and thrown down from the second floor. I rested at home for more than half a month. My father accused Li Mabai of his evil deeds in front of you with tears and snot, and the Cheng'en mansion followed closely. Swain Wan's father also added insult to injury, and several Yu historians followed suit to impeach him. Finally, the prince said, "This boy has bad behavior and is not worthy of being a disciple of the emperor." So the emperor stripped Li Mabai of his title of #1 scholar and the official position he had worked so hard to obtain. Li Mabai also became the first top scholar to be stripped of his title since the founding of the Celestial Empire, which can be said to be left in history. 13. I didn't expect Li Mabai would want to see me. I brought a maid who is skilled in martial arts and told her, if Li Mabai hurts me, just kill him. But Li Mabai doesn't have that courage. He was thrown down from the second floor of the restaurant by Zhao Sai's and broke his leg. Because he did not receive timely medical treatment, he became lame. He limped towards me, still wearing the washed-out sky-blue gown with patches on the cuffs. "Jinping," he said, looking haggard, with unshaven beard and thinner, no longer as high-spirited as the top scholar. I didn't know people well and was deceived. It turns out that the magpie has been deceiving me. She only knows a few words and can't write poetry, paint, or play the piano. The person I like has always been you. The words of the magpie may have fooled him temporarily, but they could not fool him forever. Being with her day and night, it would be easy for her flaws to be exposed. I know you have feelings for me. You used Nuan to stir up the relationship between us, which proves that you still care about me. Jinping, he called me affectionately. You have already caused me to lose my fame, and it's time to calm down. I promise you, I will marry you. I am willing to marry you, and we will live a good life in the future. I will make you a first-rank lady, a woman that everyone in Dwanjing envies. Men, their confidence sometimes makes me envy them. I looked at him speechlessly. What about the magpie? Seeing my response, he was overjoyed and immediately said, she was a fraud in marriage, so I am already doing her justice by not divorcing her. Since she is pregnant, I will keep her as a concubine. Anyway, she served you in the past, and she will continue to serve you in the future. I couldn't help but laugh. Li Mabai, in your previous life, you endured for 10 years in order to avenge Jingxia. I thought your love for her was deeper than the sea and higher than the mountains, but I didn't expect it to be just like this. For the sake of glory and wealth, you actually want to demote your wife to a concubine. Haha, it's ridiculous. Do you think I'm a cheap person? You are a commoner, penniless. Why do you think I would choose you over the son of Chung and Mansion? His face changed drastically, alternating between blue and white. I continued to provoke him. Didn't you say that you relied on our Prime Minister's mansion to rise to your high position? Now you see that you are just a gigolo. Without our Prime Minister's mansion, you are nothing. This is all your life will be like. With our Prime Minister's mansion here, you will never be able to get close to the Crown Prince. You will never be able to make a name for yourself. 14. Li Mabai didn't come out for a long time afterwards, until Prince An came to Beijing. Prince An is the youngest brother of the current emperor, only 4 years older than the Crown Prince. Compared with the Crown Prince's diligence and love of learning, he is like a negative example, not good at literature or martial arts, and only knows how to eat, drink, and have fun all day long, and has also caused several absurd things. But this was all his disguise. In his previous life, until he raised his army to rebel, no one could see his evil ambitions. Prince An's fief was in Anyang. Normally, he was not allowed to enter the capital without being summoned. Only during the Chinese New Year would he follow ancestral customs and go to the capital to accompany his mother, concubine Mu, for 2 to 3 months. He and concubine Mu had a deep mother-son relationship, and in his previous life, he waited until concubine Mu passed away before he rebelled. The people I sent to keep an eye on Li Mabai reported that Li Mabai secretly defected to Prince An. I breathed a sigh of relief. Li Mabai really didn't let me down. Having already tasted the power, how could he be willing to be just a commoner in his life? Although he could not get the appreciation of the Crown Prince, he could get the appreciation of Prince An. No one knew better than him that Prince An would rebel 10 years later and almost invade the imperial city. It was he who risked his life and went to the enemy camp alone, undermining the trust of Prince An and his military advisors, causing them to turn against each other and disrupt the morale of the army, giving the prince the opportunity to lead his troops to destroy them in one fell swoop. He is a great contributor to redress and a great hero for the people. Because of this, no one doubted his testimony against my father later. He even knelt outside the changing hall and knocked his head until it bled in order to plead for my father. The reason why my Nan family was not wiped out was because he refused the reward. What a loyal and righteous man. Who could have imagined that he would say one thing in front of you and another behind your back?
15.
I didn't tell the Crown Prince that Prince An would rebel. Without evidence, slandering the royal family will only make the prince dislike me. Moreover, although Prince An is not a good person, he is very kind to the prince and even saved his life. The prince also dotes on this little uncle and will never allow others to slander him. Li Mabai also knew this. He was not afraid of me telling on him. He even hoped that I would tell on him. Things that would happen 10 years later had no sign of happening now. He was very confident that without his obstruction in this life, Prince An would succeed in his rebellion and ascend to the throne. And since he had the merit of following the dragon, he would surely be second to none and above 10,000 people. Although I didn't tell the prince, I told my father. I told my dad that I had a nightmare, and he thought I was just imagining things and didn't take it seriously. But when I predicted what would happen in the next few days, he became more cautious. After Princeton came to Beijing, he made friends with many court officials under the guise of eating, drinking, and having fun, just like in previous years. My father liked ancient paintings, so he gave him one every year. This year's gift is Wang Guanqian's river and mountain painting. In my previous life, it was this painting that became the ironclad evidence of my father's affair with Princeton. Hidden in the axis of this framed painting is a letter from Prince and to bribe my father. It was not there originally, but Li Mabai took it from Prince and during the chaos and secretly hid it there. The painting is real, the letter is real, but the fact is fake. My father was speechless. With my warning in this life, my father flatly rejected Prince Anne's advances and took advantage of the New Year's Eve palace banquet to sell the ancient paintings that Prince Anne had given him to several other ministers in the court who loved ancient paintings. He donated all the money he earned to the frontier soldiers without keeping a single cent. My father was highly praised by the emperor for his noble character, his dedication to the people, and his exemplary role model for all officials. This caused other ministers to reluctantly donate money. Li Mabai saw all these little moves of the prime minister's mansion, but he didn't care. What's the point of cutting ties with Princeton? When Princeton ascends the throne, and he is second only to the emperor, what's the point of clearing up a prime minister's office?
16.
In the first month of the lunar year, the child of the amazing magpie was born, a son, who was given to Deng Rushing by Li Mabai as soon as he was born. On the surface, his entire family now depends on Deng Rushing. Without his official position and salary, he can only work as a long-term worker in Deng Rushing's shop. As soon as Jingxia came out of confinement, she had to do laundry to earn money for the family. Her fingers were red and swollen from the cold. Compared with when she was a maid beside me, it was like heaven and earth. I met her on the street. She was wearing thin clothes and no jewelry. She had lost a lot of weight, her face was pale and haggard, and her eyes were dull and numb. She didn't look like a woman who had just given birth at all. I invited her to dinner at Zuixinlu. She ate so much that she almost vomited and ended up crying on the table. "Miss, I regret that I shouldn't have pretended to be you to seduce him." There was a faint sound of conversation coming from next door. Of course, the soundproofing wasn't that bad originally. I did something, and her crying stopped abruptly. She recognized Li Mabai's voice. Li Mabai is penniless now. How can he have money to dine in such an expensive restaurant? Brotherly is really good at foresight. He has become the prince's confidant in a short time. This time when he returned to his fiefdom, the prince specifically asked you and your family to accompany him. If Brotherly becomes successful in the future, please don't forget me. Li Mabai laughed proudly. Of course, of course. He paused. Anyang is a long way away, and my mother is too old to go with us. My wife has to stay and take care of her, so we won't go together. The man then laughed obscenely. In this case, Brotherly will need someone to take care of him. I wonder what kind of beauty Brotherly likes. So I can ask Anyang's people to prepare in advance. Li Mabai thought for a while and asked, "Do you recognize the eldest daughter of the Sui family?" So, Brotherly likes this. For someone like the daughter of a prime minister, it's barely acceptable. Understood. Then came the sound of clinking glasses. The magpie's expression changed from surprise to joy, to frustration and anger, and finally to despair. The eyes, which were already without light, became even more lifeless. "Miss, what should I do? What should I do?" she murmured to me. 17. On March 12th, Prince Anne set out for Anyang. Half a month later, Prince Anne's biological mother, concubine Mu, was poisoned to death. After much investigation, the cause was found to be a maidservant close to concubine Mu. The maidservant was tortured to death and confessed that it was Mr. Wu, who was close to Prince Anne, who ordered the death. On the surface, Mr. Wu was a retainer of Prince Anne, but in reality, he was his military advisor and was highly regarded by Prince Anne. Concubine Mu had always been in poor health and had been bedridden for many years, but she just wouldn't die. Mr. Wu had waited for many years, but he couldn't wait any longer. In his previous life, he had someone give her a slow-acting poison, and it took 2 years to slowly kill concubine Mu. After concubine Mu died, Prince An had no more scruples and raised his army in rebellion. But Li Mabai found out the truth and dealt a fatal blow to Prince An at a critical moment, causing Prince An and Mr. Wu to become enemies. In the previous life, Mr. Wu took action 7 or 8 years later. Li Mabai couldn't wait that many years, so he took action in advance. It was also a chronic poison, and the poison took effect about a year later, but I asked someone to change it to a more potent poison. Why did Prince An's followers want to murder their master's biological mother? The prince continued to investigate and found Li Mabai, and then discovered that he had followed Prince An to Anyang. His wife took the initiative to confess that Li Mabai had handed her an account book before he left, and told her to keep it well, and said that they would soon be able to rise to prominence. That account book recorded the personal relationships between Prince An and officials in the court and various places. The amount was so huge that it was staggering. What else doesn't the prince understand? First, he controlled General Jinwu, and then sent people to rush to Anyang before Prince An and searched Prince An's mansion. Not only did they find Prince An's privately made dragon robe, but they also discovered that he was secretly training soldiers and storing weapons. Clear evidence of rebellion. Prince An and his entourage were captured halfway and taken back to Duanjing. Li Mabai's dream of being second to none and above everyone else had just sprouted when it was strangled by me. He is too confident. I have no evidence, but I can frame someone.
18.
The night before Li Mabai was beheaded, I went to see him in prison. He leaned against the wall in confusion, banging his head again and again, muttering, "No, no, something went wrong. It shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be like this." He didn't react much when he saw me. He just laughed at himself and said, "Are you here to laugh at me? I'm here to make sure you die, with understanding." He suddenly realized what was happening and stared at me in disbelief. "It's you." He shook his head again. "It's impossible. You can't possibly know that account book. That account book will only appear in 10 years. In the previous life, there was indeed such an account book. After King An was executed, Li Mabai kept the account book privately and did not hand it in. He wanted to use it to restrain the officials who had private relations with King An and control them for his own use. He also never told me the cause of concubine Mu's death. Nuan told me. I looked at him quietly. "You used Nuan as a substitute and told her everything, but she told me everything." I forged the account book. The day I came back, I wrote down the contents of the account book based on my memories of my past life. It wasn't exactly detailed, but I got most of it. Li Mabai burst into laughter. "It turned out to be like this. It turned out to be like this. I actually lost to the woman I love." He laughed until tears came out of his eyes. I laughed too. "Don't insult Nuanyuan. What qualifications do you have to love her? And Jingxia, you must not know that the reason why my plan was so successful was because of her cooperation with me." Surprised magpie? He was furious. "What have I done to this bitch that she would betray me like this? She is a maid who married a top scholar. What else can she be dissatisfied with? Bitch, tell her to come see me. Tell her to come see me." "I'm afraid she can't come," I said, "because she worked hard to expose the truth. The prince spared her the death penalty, and now she has married a wealthy businessman from another place, and she is long gone. It's a pity for your old mother. There's no need to execute the whole family. She was directly angered to death by you." He was stunned for a moment. Then he suddenly said, "You vicious woman, vicious woman. My mother has never done anything wrong to you. Why did you kill her?" "I will kill you." "What are you talking about?" I said, "It was you who killed your mother. It was you who wanted to rebel. What does it have to do with me?" He slid down to the ground powerlessly, his eyes empty except for 2 lines of tears. I turned around and took 2 steps, then looked back and said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you that your godfather Deng Rushing is also mine." 19. Half a year after Li Mabai's death, Zhao Sai's and I got married. Then she gave me 10,000 taels of silver as a gift to thank me for saving her family. On the night of our wedding, he asked me, if Li Mabai proposed to marry you, would you have agreed? I lied calmly. Of course not. He is inferior to you in every way. Why would I choose him? And I know you have liked me since you were little. He was shy. Oh, why didn't you tell me about it before? Because my love only begins when I get married. I asked him, why are you asking this question all of a sudden? I had a dream. He kissed me. It was scary, but it was just a dream. End of article.